going on, everybody? It's BUUUURN coming at you with a brand new video, and in the last one, I said that if we hit 100 likes on the test hand video, I would show off my full deck profile for my updated Fire Brigade deck for Phantom Nightmare, and y'all didn't disappoint. I mean, within one day, hitting the 100 like goal is pretty awesome, so thank you all so much for that. And I am a man of my word, and so here I am with the updated list. I promise you that if you've seen my last one, this is significantly better, much more streamlined than the last dumpster fire of a list that I made when the Fire King structure deck first came out. A lot of that was just super experimental, and it took me multiple locals to realize that some cards were just really bad or just really weren't worth it. I've got it down to a nice clean 40 cards, and I've basically just gotten it down to like necessities and such. But with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get right into my Fire King Tri-Brigade deck profile for February 2024 post Phantom Nightmare. Starting off with the Fire King monsters, a little bit of changes here from the last list. It's still 3 copies of Ponix as well as 3 copies of Kieran, and I'm only down to 2 copies of Garunix, and then the 1 Arvada and only 1 Barong. In my last list, I was playing a very bloated package of Fire Kings. I was on like 3 Garunix, with my reasoning being pitching it off of Karis and stuff, 2 Barong, which is like the only thing that's still like a bit like missed from me, and then like the 1 Wrong Bali, which, oh my god, thank Christ I got rid of that card. It is so bad. But yeah, Garunix drop down to 2 is pretty standard in most Fire King lists, even if it's like a more pure list. I mean, it's not bad if you draw it, but it could have just been like any other extender. But like I said, Barong at like down to 1 is like the only thing that I kind of miss it being at 2, because drawing it kind of is a little bit of a soft garnet, because you'd rather keep it in deck to pop it off of Sacred Garunix, but you can still pop it off of Island, and you don't always need the search, so you can still just banish it from your graveyard. It's not a huge deal. But other than that, pretty standard Fire King monster lineup. In terms of the back row, I'm going to cover like the engines as a whole together. We're still on the 2 Sanctuary and 2 Island, as well as the 1 Circle, but I'm no longer on the Skyburn. I realized that Skyburn it really felt a bit win more. I mean, most of the time, either I was bricking on it because it was just like a huge garnet most of the time if I wasn't searching it, or it just didn't really do anything, or at least I was already in a winning situation when I had it. Like, I would be searching that if I've already gone through Circle and Sanctuary. So, like, having access to the Skyburn didn't really do anything for me. There was 1 game where I cited it out, like, I won't need Skyburn. Like, I literally said in my head, surely I won't need Skyburn. And then, of course, it's like the one situation I needed Skyburn. It was against, like, Skill Drain or some other Floodgate or something. When I normaled Ponix, I could have at least done that with the Skyburn or something. I don't know, it wasn't like the biggest thing though, and there's just plenty of other ways to out stuff. That's it for the Fire Kings. Moving on to the Tri-Brigades, of course, we are on 3 copies of Fractal, 3 copies of Kit, 3 copies of Nerval, and 2 copies of Karis for the monsters. Only real difference here is that we have bumped Nerval up to 3. I believe I had it at 2 in my last list, which definitely was not great. My reasoning was mainly, oh, it's not as important in this deck because it's not like Bird Up, where having Nerval as like the main level 1 winged beast thing is super important. But that ends up not really being very true, because having Nerval in the grind game, especially when you're playing so many copies of Kit, just feels so crucial, because you just go through your Nervals just in the blink of an eye, super fast otherwise. And so just adding the 3rd copy felt amazing, and honestly, I'm really content with having basically the same Tri-Brigade package in all the decks I play. And then for the back row, we are, of course, on the 1 copy of Revolt, and I might as well show it here. We are also on 3 Tenki, of course. Let's be real, you're not searching Barong or Arvada with this, really, unless you already opened Fractal. You're just going to be searching Fractal off of this as your extra 3 copies of it. And then Revolt is typically going to be a main part of your end board. Having the follow-up from it, as well as the non-targeting banish in a format where the graveyard is so, like, important, just feels really nice. And that's actually it for the engine pieces. For, like, the non-engine, I'm on 3 copies of Ash, 2 copies of Bell, and then 2 copies of DD Crow for my hand traps. Not a super heavy hand trap lineup. Ash is kind of just like the best hand trap overall in the format, because there's a lot of things that special from deck and search that are really important, such as like the original Sinful Spoils and stuff. And then Bell is like probably the 2nd best hand trap in the format, almost tied. Really solid card overall, hits a lot of things in the format, especially cards like Big Welcome and such. And then DD Crow, normally I just play like a 3rd Bell in this slot in most other decks, but in any Tri-Brigade variant, I always want to fit at least 1 Crow in, but I'm putting 2 in now because it's like really good this format alongside Bell. But Crow's just really good because not only is it a searchable target off of Shurig if you already have Ponix in your hand access, but you also get to use it as a Beast Warrior or Wing Beast, like if you open it plus your Fractal, that's like a full Karis Banish 4 combo, and you can just use it as an extender period, which is really solid. Finally, to wrap up the non-engine and the main deck as a whole, we're on 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent and a single Called by the Grave, of course. Talents is a super strong card in this format. There's just so much you can do going first or second with it, especially when it comes to stealing monsters, but even drawing 2, especially in a grind-heavy format where every deck is trying to out-resource you, just feels really good as well. And then, of course, Called by is there because it's Called by, and we really do not like hand traps, especially Droll, which is going to be pretty prominent in this format. And that is it for the main deck. Again, I'm on just about 40 cards right there. Really happy with how that turned out, and I'm also really happy with how I've streamlined the extra deck. Starting off, of course, with the 1 Salamangre Almirage. I will still live and breathe by Almirage in just about any Tri-Brigade variant. Feels really good when you open, like, Kit or Nerval, knowing you at least have Almirage to actually do something when the rest of your hand is kind of dead. Like, if you open one of those and then, like, a Beast Warrior or Wing Beast, you can at least do something. Not to mention, it's a fire, so as I mentioned in the test hand video, if you normal Nerval or Kit and then get Ashed after you summon the Almirage, if you have access to Island or something, you can still full combo off with your Fire Kings. Super good there. Another thing that I'm so happy with is being able to play 2 copies of Farragut in my Tri-Brigade list. This is like the first Tri-Brigade list I've reliably been able to play 2, because I've been on Bird Up for so long. Farragut at 1 just felt so standard for a long time, because you just don't have the extra deck space, but in this deck you actually have multiple flex spots in the extra, and just having the 2 Farragut is so good in the grind game, especially in a format like this. And if you get hand trapped, you can at least have the second Farragut as follow-up, which is so good for extending no matter the hand. We're also, of course, on the 1 Bearbrum for the other Link 2 Tri-Brigade. Very standard, searches your revolt, also happens to be a fire in very niche situations. Also, the summon back from Banished is pretty good when you want to get back like a Ponix or something, as well as being part of your combos. For the final Link 2 Beast Warrior or Wing Beast, we are, of course, on the 1 Double Dragon Lords. He's not a part of every end board, as I state in the test hand video, but he is really nice to have, especially in a grind, because you can use it as a piece of disruption when your opponent doesn't really have anything that can do against it, and maybe like one other card in your hand, like a hand trap. Really cool there, especially, again, because it doesn't put to the graveyard, and the graveyard is super important right now. One of the only things in the extra deck currently that I'm actually questioning is the 1 copy of Hida, because I really like Hida, especially going into a format where there's going to be a bunch of Fire Kings, Snake Eyes, Volcanic, Rescue Ace, Flame Swordsman. All these fire decks are going to be in the next format, and so you think Hida would feel like really good, and it does, especially in those decks. But in this deck in particular, sometimes you are under the Tri-Brigade lock, so basically if you're going into Hida and you're not doing just your Fire King plays, so that means that whatever you summon off of Hida better be a strong card in general, as opposed to something you plan on linking off, because you can't really do anything with it if you're locked under the Tri-Brigade lock. Same goes with Hida herself. So yeah, it is really cool if you're under just like your Fire King stuff, like maybe your Tri-Brigade engine got stopped, but like, it really doesn't do too much else. So one of the cards that I'm going to mention in the alternative section is what I would use to replace this card if I were to replace it. I want to keep doing testing with her because I really like Hida and I really like the interaction she has, especially because at least I can afford to do that in an extra deck that actually has the space. But again, as we get into the alternatives, I will show a card that I would replace this card with if I feel like she is not doing enough. We also are on the 1 copy of IP as well as the 1 SP. Surprise, surprise, I did get my hands on an SP compared to my last list. I kept making jokes in that video and in the first live duel without it about, oh, this is where I put my SP if I had one and stuff like that. SP feels so good in this deck. I'm being so real when I say that I will never go back to Unicorn in this deck ever. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't playing Unicorn in other Tri-Brigade lists. It was mostly just this one because I could play IP. But holy shit, being able to turn Fractal into a solid 1-card combo that doesn't neg resources to go Apple Revolt by using it to go into SP Revolt with the 4 things banished as well, and also still having 3 cards in hand feels amazing. Not to mention that this is a key part of the other combo I will mention when I go into the alternatives, and of course being such a grindy card for follow-up disruptions by removing itself, similar to DPE, in such a grind heavy format feels amazing. This card is so good. I'm just really mad it's like $130 right now. Thank God I got mine for $100. A new addition to the extra deck from the last one is the 1 Hrisvelgr, the Desperate Doom Eagle. This could also be a Rugal if you don't have Doom Eagle or if you feel like going for Rugal. I just really like Doom Eagle for disrupting the graveyard in certain matchups like Tier and stuff. I figured I had the space and I cut Zeus because Zeus was doing literally nothing ever because I wasn't really playing anything to like purposefully go into it. and I really missed having the Link 3 from like a Fractal or a Kit into access code, plus getting more follow-up off like the Kit and stuff, and going off into some really strong going second or turn 3 boards. And that's basically its entire purpose. It would be its entire purpose if it was like Rugal specifically, and you could actually hard make it sometimes if you don't own SP, which is like, that's one of the things you can do, at least if you have like the Fractal combo, you can go into Rugal instead of SP, though at that point I'd rather just neg resources to do the Apple Revolt with it. But yeah, other than that, Doom Eagle's main purpose here is just going into access code and stuff, but it can be a pretty decent graveyard disruption as well. We're also still on the 2 copies of Shurig, of course 1 for your combo and 1 for your Revolt, nothing too much to say there, very standard. And we are still on the 1 Appaloosa and the 1 access code as our generic Link 4s. Access code is a super good OTK enabler, and Appaloosa will be a part of most of your end boards, which is really cool because you can especially make her on Summon 5 most of the time. And that is it for the Link monsters. For the rest of the extra deck, it's literally very simple, just 2 Xyz monsters, the 1 Garunix Eternity and the 1 Typhon. Very strong cards overall, Garunix Eternity being part of like your Kieran and Sanctuary plays, and then Typhon just being such a powerful card in general. Moving into like any format really, even if like everything seems hopeless and lost and you got like all of your plays disrupted when you're going second, you can just slap a Typhon down and at least usually stall until next turn, especially when you're playing a deck like Fire King or Tri-Brigade that just has amazing recursion. So as I did mention, I do have some alternatives for the first time in like ages on one of my deck profiles. And by alternatives, I really just mean cards that are in the side deck, but you can choose to main either or if you really want to. But the big thing I wanted to talk about was the Arclight package. Now, a lot of people that have seen my bird up lists and stuff, especially like my breakdown where I really elaborate on this, you'll know exactly what this is, and that is utilizing Shurig's search ability to grab the Fabled Cerberel and use it alongside a Karis or a Bearbrum in order to summon it back and make a Herald of the Arclight utilizing K, Karis, etc. Now, of course, as I said, this was really popularized in bird up from my stuff, and also it was getting pretty good traction in like pure Tri-Brigade and other variants, mainly Melfi as well until they got like their own stuff. But I hadn't really thought about it until the other day when it came to Fire Brigade, because I don't really think it like super desperately needs it, but I think it is still a pretty solid package, especially when I figured out that you can actually make it utilizing your regular Ponix plus any Tri-type combo. Basically, the extent of this package literally just serves to make an Omni Negate, which is really good in games 2 and 3, especially when you suspect cards like Evenly Matched, which can tear apart your board pretty damn good. The only quote-unquote issue with this combo is that, well, there's a little, like, 2 slight ones, is that Cerberel can be a brick sometimes, especially if you don't open Karis alongside it. It can end up just, like, sitting there clogging up your hand, especially if you're forced to go second, surprisingly. And then also, cards like Ghost Bell, DD Crow, and Bystials are pretty prominent overall, so they can end up getting hit here, but that's the benefit of only using it in games 2 and 3 as a side deck option, because a lot of people, especially when it comes to like Bystials and stuff, they're going to side out those cards against you, mainly the Bystials, because they don't really think it does anything to you because you're playing like a bunch of like fires and stuff mostly, and then like other various attributes that aren't light or dark. So that's how you can squeeze in like the cheeky Cerberel into Arclight play, and like I said, it's just really good against board breakers in general, but it's also just really good against other power cards such as the Runics and stuff. And the other card that I wanted to mention that I have in the side deck currently, but you could absolutely squeeze in the main deck, is Forbidden Droplet. I think this card is insane in this deck. You have so many cards that can do stuff later or immediately in graveyard after you use this card. It's good going first or going second. A lot of different applications you can have for, especially in a format where a lot of interactions are happening in the middle of the turn as opposed to the beginning with like mass negate boards. It's especially solid against decks like Manadium though that are sitting on big end boards, especially if they don't have access to the counter trap, which you can easily stop by like hitting the Rumheart or something, or the Visas Armatara. There's just a lot of things you can do with Droplet that makes it feel really, really good. I don't have it in the main because I wanted to keep it at a clean 40 cards, but there are some things in the main deck that you could experiment with, or you can just play 43 cards if you really want. It's not a super huge deal. Droplet is a pretty solid card, so it's probably worth it. And that is going to do it for my Fire Brigade deck profile for February. Really, really love this deck. It's so much fun to play. A little disappointing that I'm currently keeping it like shelved because I'm playing Labyrinth a little bit first so I can test that out with rollback, but this is definitely my go-to deck after the fact because it is just amazing being able to play a Tri-Brigade deck that's much more flexible than Bird Up, and I love being able to compete in a grind game in such a grind-heavy format. I still think that if you really don't want to shell out money for Princess, Populace, Bonfire, stuff like that, this is an amazing budget alternative that can actually steal you some wins. I don't know though, maybe that's just my opinion. Let me know yours down in the comments below, because that's going to do it for the video. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as I'll split this video and the channel into 2 recommended. And if it's content and more like the rest of my deck profiles, then perhaps consider subscribing and turning on notifications, because it supports your channel more than anything else, and it's absolutely free. Plus, we're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. Also, if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome TCG merchandise in the process, check out Tapio cards in the link down below. Use code Aurora5 for 5% off your purchase at checkout, and to support me financially. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.